So on my way to record in Lef Studios in Uden in Holland today, to record in the wash track called No Silence for our new album. So let's see what this is all about. Yeah, so the intro footage was from last year, October 2022, when we recorded the tracks for our latest single, No Silence, in Lef Studios in Uden in Holland. And now, shameless promo, we already released the video clip of that track 2 weeks ago. And today, April 21st, 2023, we are releasing the full album, including that track, on Spotify and other streaming services. And I'll put links to all of that in the description below, so please like, listen, share as much as you want. Now, this video is of course for me partly to celebrate the album release, but I hope it will also be useful and fun to you, because I want to share some of our recording experience on that day in Uden in Lef Studios, and basically try to answer two questions. One, why did we go to a studio instead of recording the tracks in our home recording studios, like we tend to do a lot? And two, how to make it a worthwhile and rewarding experience. So, after all, let's go. And maybe to begin with that second question, how to make it a worthwhile and rewarding experience, preparation is really key. For example, these are some scenes from our latest rehearsal before the recording, where we really focused on every part of every instrument so that all the details would be clear for everybody on the day of recording. Especially if you're not used to recording in a strange studio environment, it's likely that you'll be a bit more nervous and you'll probably need a few more takes, like we certainly did as well. So for that, it is really essential to be prepared and to really know all your parts really well, so that at least you don't have to think about those anymore. As for one of the reasons why we chose to record in a professional studio for this track, well, we're probably all gearheads on this channel, at least I am, so it's really nice to make use of all of that gear that you can find in a professional recording studio like this. So over here you're seeing some of the output of the studio that we use to record our instruments, some very nice preamps, and they actually also had a very nice plate reverb in the attic. We didn't use it, but it's not something that you would find in a home recording studio so easily. And although I have some really nice gear in this recording studio as well, it's mostly geared to recording one instrument at a time. Whereas in a studio like this, it's obviously all set up to be able to record multiple instruments and basically the whole band at the same time, so that you can hopefully also catch the vibe of playing a song together like you do in a live performance, for example. Now, when you go to a studio, it's also important to remember that a lot of time is spent not actually recording, but setting up all your instruments and equipment. Usually a lot of time is spent in setting up the microphones, especially for a drum set, because there's lots of microphones to be set up, doing line checks, making sure everything is working technically. That can take a lot of time. And if you have the opportunity, I would suggest that you actually do that the day before you want to start recording, so that all of that is out of the way and everything is ready on the day of recording. Now, some studios may have assistants to help with the setup, where the main engineer mans the desk and the assistants are setting up stuff in the live room, but it can still take quite a while before everything is ready. Now, I don't have any footage of us actually recording together because we were all busy at that moment really. But in general, you want to record at least the basic tracks all together and then overdub some of the parts later so that they can get more focus, or maybe because there are additional layers of guitars or keyboards or whatever. So in our recording of the basic tracks, we kept the drums, the bass, most of the electric guitar and the main keyboard part, but we didn't keep the acoustic guitar part, for example, or the vocal of our singer. Those were overdubbed later. In addition to, for example, an extra guitar part, which I'm recording over here. Some extra keyboard parts, and this one I remember as being particularly tricky. And yeah, I also added a guitar solo part as an overdub on the loud cheers of the band when I was finally finished.
Dat is goed hoor. Yeah! Dat was echt vet hoor.
Now, another advantage of recording at a pro studio is that you work with professionals who do this much more often than at least I'm doing it in my home studio. So they have a lot of experience and there's a lot of interesting things to learn and pick up on. One of the parts we overdubbed was also the acoustic guitar. As you can see in these clips, it was mic'd with 2 microphones, one directly pointed at the sound hole and one pointed more from above the neck position. And again, these are very nice microphones, going into very nice preamps, being recorded in an acoustically treated space, which you probably don't have in your home recording studio. Now the main vocal as well as the backup vocals were recorded with a Neumann U67, a vintage microphone. Also an option which you may not have directly available at home. Now also be prepared to spend some time in the lounge of the studio, because it's good to take some breaks at least for food, for relaxing and some chit chat, which is annoying if you do that in the control room or in the live room. Now at this point, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell icon if you want to get notified when I post another video. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can use the super thanks button below the video. Or if you're planning to buy any musical gear, you can also use the affiliate links in the description below to these stores. And if you buy anything over there via these links, then I get a small commission without any extra cost to you. Now we spent a good part of the day to record the basic tracks and the overdubs for this new Wash song. And this studio is using Pro Tools, so we got the recording as a lot of audio files and a Pro Tools session file. I believe it was around 12 gigabytes of data in total, and we were fine to get all of this in Pro Tools format, because initially the idea was that the mix would also be made in Pro Tools. However, in the end that didn't happen, so Peter, our bass player from Perfect Sounds Unleashed, actually had to go through all the WAV files and line them up in a Cubase project so that the mix could be done in Cubase, which was also done by him for this track, by the way. Now normally that would definitely not be our preferred way of working, because if we had known that we would mix this song in Cubase, then we probably would have asked for full-length exports of all the single tracks from the Pro Tools session, so that you can just directly import them into your Cubase and they all line up and sync up correctly. But that's not the agreement that we had with the studio, as that's a lot of additional work. So Peter had to spend a lot of time to find all the different audio files in the Pro Tools session and line them up in Cubase and make sure that everything was in sync. So let's have a look at the various tracks we have in that Cubase session. We have over 60 tracks, including the group tracks though. A lot of different drum mics, and that sounds like this. Bass we recorded as a DI and through a DBX compressor. Adding the piano of our keyboard player. And we have some acoustic guitar parts that you saw being recorded. This is a more sparse part. And this is the more heavy part at the end. And we have a lot of vocal recordings, of course. This is the U67. Upside down on this mountain, a new river was born. And some backing vocals. No silence. No silence. Yeah, so a full day at the studio, giving us all these tracks that Perfect Sounds Unleashed mixed into the release that's now available on the streaming services. And let's not forget Lars Putter, who is the owner of Left Studios, for letting us record in that studio, and Alex Saez for hooking us up to this studio to begin with, so that we could make this recording on that day. But let's get back to the questions that I asked in the beginning. What benefits does it provide to record in a professional recording studio, and how can you make it a worthwhile experience? So the main benefits that we noticed from recording in the studio were number one, the people. They were experienced personnel, which even provided some ideas on our parts and how we played them, and I think that made the recording better. Number two, the gear. The microphones, the outboard, the preamps, they were all top notch. Number three, the fact that in the studio we can lay down our tracks all together. And that's important so that you can add a sort of live feel to the track, similar to playing together in rehearsal or on a gig. But in this case, it was also important that we could do it all in one day, because we had the album deadline to meet with this track. Because normally when we record all our tracks in our own home studios, it can really take months before we have all recordings for a single song. You have to exchange the sessions, you have to wait until somebody has time to record, you have to wait until somebody can drop by over here, for example, to record the vocals, and another visit for the acoustic guitar. So it takes a lot more time to get a track recorded. And over here we had all recordings in a single day. And number four is the room acoustics. It was a nice big live room with a nice sound, which is probably not so easy in a home recording studio. For example, in a home recording studio, we typically do not record drums. Instead, we tend to rely on Superior Drummer 3, whereas this provided us the ability to get a nice drum recording with a nice sound, where our drummer was actually playing his own acoustic drums that he also plays on the live gig. Now, in order to make recording in such a studio worthwhile, I feel you need to be, one, prepared. Make sure you know your song, make sure you know it inside out. Make sure you don't have to practice it while you're in the recording studio, because then you're wasting time. Two, if at all possible, set up a day before, because it takes a lot of time to get everything set up, everything checked, to make sure that all the levels are right. So if you can do that the day or the evening before you actually want to start recording, that's a great benefit. Yeah, and three, be prepared to have to do a lot of waiting, especially if you didn't set up one day ahead, but also when other people are doing their overdubs. You're basically just waiting for them to finish their parts. And four, after all, very important, make sure you have fun. Now again, I will leave streaming links to the album in the description below. Also a link to the video clip of this particular song. And on this new album we also have a track called The Calling, which was fully recorded in our home studios, and I have a whole playlist of videos detailing that process. So check it out over here, enjoy, and see you soon.